Welcome to the debut episode of this season's Chop and Birds Weekly NFL Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Pork Chop, flying solo this week. Chris has got some personal things he's dealing with, so he'll be back next week. I am here, for those of you that are brand new, to give you guys some headlines from the NFL and also, obviously, the picks at the very end. And Chris and I have a few segments that we like to do, like Panic, Don't Panic, What the Fuck Happened, and a fantasy player for you to pick up. And so I honestly would like to say I'm very excited that the NFL season is finally among us with the Thursday night football game just right around the corner. And I will be here the entirety of the season to talk your ear off for the 2 or 3 of y'all that actually listen to this fucking show. I appreciate you. And I would like to first and foremost say welcome, like I did earlier. So that's in a nutshell what we really do here, and let's go ahead and start. I'm actually going to pull a article that I read off of NFL.com about some teams that might be on the lookout for an upset. So Nick Shook from NFL, he writes an article. The headline is Week 1 Underdogs. Can Rams open with a victory over Bills? Cowboys to top Bucks. And he has his 5 games that he picks. It says 5, right? Yeah, 5 games that he will has picked the underdogs to beat the team that is favored. So the first one is the Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers, 4:25 kickoff Sunday on CBS. The spread is 3.5, and the money line has the Chargers actually winning at -180. He says in the article, Shook says, the Chargers have been an offseason darling thanks to some splashy roster moves. Khalil Mack is now in powder blue, as is cornerback J.C. Jackson, filling out the roster that looks damn good on paper. In theory, they should be better than the team that narrowly missed the playoffs last year, even with Jackson expected to miss Week 1 as he recovers from a recent ankle surgery. I can't read good. But we're forgetting about the team that single-handedly slammed the postseason door on the Bolts in 2021. The Raiders are back for more and arguably stronger than they were last season thanks to the acquisition of Derek Carr's former Fresno State pal, Davante Adams. Out went Ngakoue Njoku. I just remembered how to say his name. Njoku! And in-step Chandler Jones for each big catch reel in by the Chargers. The Raiders seem to have their equivalent. I like their chances of making it 2 straight over the Chargers. Might this be the second underdog upset at SoFi Stadium to kick off the 2022 season? Read on to find out. So that was his first one, and I kind of agree with him. I mean, the Raiders are one of those teams that Derek Carr just gives his all, and he does what he can with the weapons he's gotten. But since he has his old college pal, Davante Adams, at the helm to help catch some passes, which obviously Aaron Rodgers, that was his favorite target when he was in Green Bay. I think it's going to really help out Derek Carr, who had a pretty good season last year, so I think this season might actually be even better for him. So the second matchup that he has is the Buffalo Bills at the Los Angeles Rams. This is the Thursday night game on NBC, 8:20 kickoff, and the Rams are a +2. The money line has the Buffalo Bills at -130. So the article goes on to say it's only week 1, but it's a big one. Yeah, this is probably the best Thursday night matchup I think I can remember in recent history. Last year, I believe it was the Cowboys and the Bucks. I could be mistaken, but I think that's how it was last year. But I mean, it just seems like that they have all these great games. But this one is definitely like a marquee because these are the 2 teams that people are expecting to meet in the Super Bowl when it's all said and done. But so anyway, the article goes on to say Buffalo enters 2022 with high hopes again, and apparently those hopes are enough to make the defending Super Bowl champs the underdog at home. Disrespectful? Yes. Unbelievable? Not quite. It's fair to expect a bit of a letdown from a championship due for coronation. The Bills can certainly produce enough firepower to sink the Rams, and it's reasonable to wonder at the elbow tendinitis of Matthew Stafford dealt with in camp, even if the quarterback claims to have no limitations, quote-unquote, heading into the season. But we're overlooking a key element here. Most of the Rams' integral pieces return. They've added a key contributor in receiver, Allen Robinson. They're primed to pick up right where they left off, and with a home field advantage, it's easy to see them come up on top. By the time the clock hits 000, perhaps we'll come to realize that it's the Von Miller Bowl. After serving as a postseason powerhouse for Los Angeles, the pass rusher jumped to Buffalo in the offseason, and the Rams used the extra cap space to add linebacker Bobby Wagner, filling their biggest defensive needs. Bragging rights are on the line for both Miller and his former teammates. Most importantly, it's a fantastic way to start the season. It's easy fodder for the Rams bulletin board. I trust the champs to get the job done. Now, see, this one I really don't agree with, but I actually do have the Bills going way deep into the postseason. They're a good football team. They're stacked, and like the article said, they got even better at defense with Von Miller and Bobby Wagner, which the Cowboys had a chance to get both of them but didn't want to pay up because Jerry Jones apparently is pinching pennies these days, and I don't know why, because you're the most wealthy NFL, actually, sports team in the world. The Cowboys are number one again when it comes to the wealthiest teams on the planet. So I don't get it. But, I mean, this game could go either way. I actually did a wager on betonline.ag last year, the day after the Super Bowl, where if the Rams score 1 point, then I get my bet doubled. So I bet $5 just, for shits and giggles. So if they score 1 point, I turn $5 into $10. So I got that going for me. Now the third game, and the last one I'm going to mention ad nauseum, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Dallas Cowboys. The Buccaneers money line have them at minus 140, and the spread is the Cowboys plus 2.5. This is the Sunday Night Football game on NBC at Jerry World. We're running back last season's kickoff game, but with a change of venue. Will it produce a new result? I'm saying yes, but not for the reasons you might expect. Both Dallas and Tampa Bay are dealing with their fair share of injury-related absences. The latter squad will likely feel a much bigger impact. Football starts in the trenches, and the Buccaneers have been decimated by losses along the interior before the season even starts. They've entered 2022 with a newish head coach and a patchwork offensive line that will be tasked with protecting Tom Brady against the defense that has a penchant for forcing turnovers in 2021. Talk about a hurdle. Dallas, meanwhile, lacks the same pass-catching weapons it had in 2021. The Cowboys are also expected to start a rookie at left tackle in place of the injured Tyron Smith. Luckily, that's not even a fucking word, Colin. Luckily for the Cowboys, they have a quarterback who can scoot and enough backfield options to win the short game. That was really worded weirdly. Perhaps we shouldn't expect these two teams for a combined 60 points a second straight time. This might be a low-scoring affair, and since I'm choosing between the two, I'll take the team that led the league in turnover differential last season. Regardless, I expect this one to be a nail-biter. So, he's picking the Cowboys over Tampa Bay. I wouldn't be surprised. Tampa Bay, that, like he said in the article, the offensive line for Tom Brady has diminished. We got stronger, but kind of on par, because we did lose Randy Gregory, but we still have Marcus Lawrence. We got Anthony Barr, that's one of the linebackers, and we could just that we just recently signed. So it could be interesting, and Dak's ability to run versus Tom Brady's ability to stand like a statue in the pocket. I kind of like Dallas's chances, but we'll see. And you guys will get my thing about the Cowboys when I talk about the Cowboy Talks. The fourth game is Kansas City at Arizona, so he's picking Arizona to actually beat Kansas City. And then the last game he has is the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. And he has the Vikings beating the Packers on one of the later games both the games that I mentioned after the Cowboys, the Kansas City at Arizona and the Green Bay at Minnesota, are both 425, and one's on Fox and one's on CBS. But regardless, anybody can win any given Sunday, but it's nice to hear an article right off the bat that somebody's like, oh, maybe the Cowboys have a chance. But then again, I'm like Hawkeye. It's like, don't do that. Don't give me hope. So the first segment we're going to start for the season is...
What the fuck happened?
And we're going to start up with the biggest topic I think that happened in the offseason, and that was the Cleveland Browns and the Deshaun Watson fiasco. For those of you that have been hiding under a rock all offseason, Baker Mayfield is no longer a Cleveland Brown. He is now a Carolina Panther, taking the starting job away from the ghost seer, the guy that can see spirits and shit, in Darnold. And so he actually is getting the opportunity to play against his former team in Week 1, and he told the media that he was going to, quote-unquote, he was going to fuck them up. Which I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they do end up, quote-unquote, fucking them up, and I wouldn't expect any less from Baker Mayfield claiming something like that, because the dude is just... I like Baker Mayfield. I like his attitude. I like his commercials. And I think he got the raw dog of the deal. Really got shafted. Pun intended, because Deshaun Watson, that whole thing with him. If more than 24 women have claimed that you pretty much whipped your dick out during a massage session and climaxed, that is the most Cleveland Brown thing I've ever heard. You go from Baker Mayfield, who actually led your team to the playoffs for the first time in a hot minute, to somebody that now has to serve an 11-game suspension, and he had to donate money out of his own pocket to charity because he's such a piece of shit. So now Jacoby Brissett has to go up against the Carolina Panthers and Baker Mayfield, and I think that's a little unfair. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Browns have that carousel ready to go, putting a quarter in week and week out until Deshaun Watson gets back. And we don't even know what kind of player Deshaun Watson's going to be when he comes back after the 11-week suspension. But Jacoby Brissett is the starter as of right now. I don't know if he's going to stay that way, but we'll just have to wait and see as time goes by. So that is my what the fuck happened. The next one is panic.
Time to spread the word, and the word is panic.
The team that I think that needs to panic right now, even though they weren't going to accomplish much, they weren't really going to do anything to begin with, but now it's really decimated, is the New York Jets. Zach Wilson, the MILF hunter himself, you know, Pornhub title intended at the bottom. He is out for the first 4 weeks, I believe, and that means that Joe Flacco, the quote-unquote elite quarterback back in the day, which I never thought Joe Flacco was elite. If you asked me 10 years ago, if you asked me 8 years ago, 7, 6, all the way until he left the Baltimore Ravens, I would have told you, no, he is not elite, even though that was the biggest debate. But he will now be the starter for the Jets, at least this week, but foreseeable for the next 4 weeks while Zach Wilson is out with an injury. There's also an article here talking about that in depth by Jeremy Bergerman? Sorry, first time I've ever heard about this guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he donates to charity, and he takes his grandma for ice cream on the weekends. But headline, Jets quarterback Joe Flacco to start versus Ravens. Zach Wilson knee out until at least week 4 versus Steelers. The article starts with Joe Flacco will start at quarterback for the New York Jets in their season opener against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reported on Wednesday. Flacco, New York's backup, will play instead of starter Zach Wilson, who is still recovering from a knee injury suffered during the preseason. Jets coach Robert Saleh, I can never pronounce that fucking guy's name, confirmed Wednesday that Flacco will start against Baltimore, but also that Wilson won't be available for the New York's first 4 games. The earliest the second-year quarterback can return is Week 4 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The head coach said Wilson will not go on injury reserve because he wants the signal caller to practice for the next few weeks. He goes on to quote Saul, this week he's going to be off to the side with the trainers, Saul explained, and will slowly, part of his rehab schedule, start implementing him back into practice over the next couple of weeks. Wilson underwent knee surgery on August 16th after suffering a bone bruise and a meniscus tear. Ouch. In New York's first preseason game against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Jets QB was scrambling on New York's second drive of the game and went down with a non-contact injury, which in the NFL, that is usually really bad, so they got off easy with only 4 weeks of injury. That was me, that wasn't the article, I was actually quoting that myself. He didn't see the field for the rest of the preseason, resting and rehabbing in hopes of starting Gang Green's Week 1 game. Now, it turns out, Wilson won't be available for the whole month of September. He looks fantastic. He still looks great. He feels great. You guys are going to get a chance to talk to him. You guys will see he's not walking with a limp or anything, the head coach added off of Wilson. But just gathering all the information and talking to the doctors with ours, we're just going to end it until Pittsburgh, the coach concluded. Wilson told reporters on Wednesday that he'll begin throwing again and working on dropbacks. When the injury happened, I was pissed at myself, Wilson said. Preseason game, you got to be able to start healthy. It's a setback for the former number 2 overall pick who missed 4 games due to injury in his rookie season, but an opportunity for Flacco, the 37-year-old veteran, to lead a talented Green roster in his 14th season. In a storyline no one expected in 2022, the now journeyman Flacco will open up the camp against the Ravens, his former team with whom he spent the first 11 seasons of his career and won a Super Bowl. The Ravens ultimately replaced Joe Flacco, the greatest quarterback in franchise history, with his Week 1 opponent Lamar Jackson, who is on his way to becoming Baltimore's best ever signal caller and glorified running back. It will be a matchup of unwilling mentor and mentee. I didn't even know mentee was anything besides like the taste minty or the tea has a mint taste to it at MetLife Stadium. Never heard mentee as a term. For the Jets, Flacco should be a steady, if unexciting, presence under center. In 2 seasons with the New York, Flacco has made 7 appearances, including 5 starts, completing 57.4% of his passes for 1,202 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. In his 1 preseason appearance this year, the veteran went 7 for 12 for 76 yards and an ugly pick 6. With the surprisingly deep crop of talent at his disposal, receiver Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson, and Baxter Berrios, running back Breece Hall, and Michael Carter, and tight end Tyler Conklin and C.J. Uzomah, Flacco could find success early and get New York's offense on the right flight path against 3 AFC North opponents, Baltimore, at Cleveland, and Cincinnati. But the veteran's presence under center has to be disappointing for a Jets organization and fan base hoping to finally take off with Wilson in 2022. So speedy recovery to him. Joe Flacco, I mean, just not really exciting, not really inspiring. It's like back when the Cowboys had Whedon at quarterback a few years back, or it was just like, ugh. It doesn't really blow up my skirt if you catch my drift. So I thoughts and prayers to the New York Jets. I don't think you guys want to do much. Chris and I will do our standings for next week, our projected finishes for each division, and way early Super Bowl picks next week when he gets back. But that's all I have to say about that. The team that I don't think really needs to panic, because don't panic, it's here.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Is the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are one of those teams that people kind of forget about. They have a brand new coach, brand new regime, brand new system, everything. Kirk Cousins is a really good quarterback. He just doesn't really produce much. It just seems like, regular season, he's there, and then when it comes to the postseason, he's either non-existent or the team doesn't even make the playoffs. But going back to the article that Mr. Shook wrote, this is talking about the Minnesota Vikings. It says, yes, as the old saying goes, toss out the records when it comes to the rivals. These two have been known to produce several exciting early season contests in recent years, and a new challenge might level the playing field. Aaron Rodgers embarks on his first season without Davante Adams since 2013. I forgot that he was there that freaking long. That is ridiculous. Instantly creating a steeper climb for the reigning back-to-back MVP. His new receiving core lacks a headliner but not depth. Will it be enough to take down the Vikings? I see Minnesota as a team that is overlooked but lurking. See, I told you they were kind of overlooked. Nobody really gives a shit about them. Every team in that division has a soft place in my heart, minus the Green Bay Packers, by the way. The article goes on to say, the Vikings have a rookie coach with a fresh perspective, the weapons to keep pace with whatever the new look Packers produce, and a defense that includes a former Packer, Zadarius Smith, who might be out for a little revenge. Minnesota also existed as Green Bay's little brother for a while now, and if ever there were a time for the smaller sibling to land a haymaker, it's week 1. I actually kind of agree with that. The Vikings, Green Bay just lost that depth, man. They lost Davante Adams, which was Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy, has been for almost a decade, and now he's gone. And I think, Lazard is the main dude now, and I just don't have that much faith in him. So that's definitely the team that I think needs to panic, or not panic, I should say, with the Minnesota Vikings. Player in fantasy I think y'all should pick up is Daniel Jones, the quarterback for the New York Giants. I know it's against my religion as a Cowboys fan to mention anything New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles, or Washington Commanders, but Daniel Jones has that ability to take off and run if he needs to. I know he gets tackled by the turf gnomes from time to time, but regardless, it just seems like one of those pickups that you definitely should consider, especially with the wheels being an option. So that's the player I want you to pick up. So unfortunately, Chris isn't here for me to ask him the question, so I'm going to go ahead and ask y'all. And that question bears repeating, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I'm going to do it every single freaking week for y'all. And that question is, who you got? So, right off the bat, Thursday Night Football. Everybody's really excited about this one, including myself. It is the Buffalo Bills at the LA Rams. Thursday Night Football. Good way to start the season, if you ask me. I'm going to go with the Bills, the away team. Chris is also going with the Bills. The first noon game is the New Orleans Saints at the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have Marcus Mariota. The Saints have Jameis Winston. I don't know about this matchup, but I'm going to go with the Saints, also the Road Warriors, to beat the at-home Falcons. The next game is the San Francisco 49ers at the Chicago Bears. Also, Chris is going with the Saints as well. I'm going to go with the 49ers. And so is Chris. We'll really see what Trey Lance can do. I know that there's a bet out there that you bet over 14 and a half interceptions is what he's projected to throw, because he's not thrown to anybody. Justin Fields, that is. Sorry, not Trey Lance. Justin Fields. So they might actually get a handful on this one anyway. So I'm going to go with the road team again. And Chris is also going with the road team. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Pittsburgh Steelers officially announced Mitchell Trubisky. So you got Joey B versus Trubisky. Going with Joey B. There's no freaking way I see the 49ers, the Steelers winning this game. I just think that they're stacked, the Bengals, that is, and the Steelers are probably going to have to do a little bit of experimenting to see who they want at quarterback. Wouldn't be surprised if Kenny Pickett finds his way up to QB1. So Chris and I are both going with the Bengals. Philadelphia Eagles at the Detroit Lions. I'm going to go with the Eagles. I almost threw up my mouth saying that. Chris is also going with the Eagles. The next game is the New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to go with the road team again, and Chris is going with the Dolphins. So that's the first difference that we have. And probably won't be the last. And next game, Baltimore Ravens at the New York Jets. So you got Joe Flacco, like I mentioned earlier, facing off against his former team in the Ravens. Only less than 5% of the people are picking the Jets. I am not going to be one of them, so I'm picking the Ravens to beat them. Another road team. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Washington Commanders. I'm going to go with Washington on this one, and Chris is also going with Washington. The Cleveland Browns at the at the Carolina Panthers. So this is probably going to be a revenge game, and I think that's exactly what it's going to be for Baker Mayfield. So I'm going with the Panthers, and so is Chris. The Indianapolis Colts at the Houston Texans. Colts have another new quarterback. This is their third starting quarterback in 3 years. Let's see if they actually get this one right with Matty Ice. I'm actually predicting him to beat... I forget the quarterback's name for the Texans. That's going to drive me crazy, but I'm going to go with the Colts, and Chris is also going with the Colts. This one is going to be interesting. The New York Football Giants at the Tennessee Titans. I told you guys to pick up Daniel Jones for the Giants earlier, but I'm still going to pick the Titans, and shocker, Chris is also picking the Titans. That was the first 325 game. The next 325 game is the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. Chris is picking the Packers. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Vikes. #Skull. Okay. The Kansas City Chiefs at Arizona Cardinals. This is going to be a fun game. I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup, to say the least. I know it's in Arizona, but picking the Chiefs. Another road team, and Chris is also picking the Chiefs. The Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers. So SoFi is getting both games in week 1, man. I bet they're really raking in the profits with that one. But I'm going to go against the grain here. I'm going to pick the Raiders, and Chris is picking the Chiefs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Dallas Cowboys. Sunday Night Football. This is one of those things that I mentioned earlier about the Cowboys probably stealing a win because their injuries are far less severe than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers injuries. I'm going to sound like a fucking homer here, but I'm going to go with the how about them Cowboys. Chris is going with the Bucks. And then Monday Night Football, the first Monday Night Football with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman at the helm, is the Broncos at the Seahawks. The Seahawks traded Russell Wilson to the Broncos, and the Broncos got jack shit in return. Or the Seahawks got jack shit in return. Noah Fant and a quarterback that's not even starting. They have Geno Smith starting over Drew Lock. Not really a revenge game because Russ is one of those nice guys in the league, so I guess you can't call it that, but I'm going to go with the Horsies. I'm going to go with the Broncos. I did not mean to set this as like the tiebreaker in shit, which did Chris fill it out? He did not, so we're just not going to worry about that. But that's all I got for you is the picks. So you know the drill. Leave the picks down below in the comments. If you're listening to us on Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review if you feel so inclined. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, go ahead and leave a like. Leave the comments down below that you guys want to join the pick'em. And guys, thank y'all so much for everything. Greatly appreciate y'all. Like I said, hopefully Chris will be back in next week. I got a good feeling that he's going to be back by next week. He's just got that 1 week injury, so to speak. But anyway, guys, that's all I got. And always remember, my little piglets, call him Pork Chop, loves y'all the mostest, and make good choices, especially in the goddamn pickle. Hope that was a little ASMR for you. Bye, guys.